The impetus for this live stream and the ones that are subsequent that are coming up in the coming weeks is that we are running a training right now at Master Coach University called the Assessment Training, the Assessment Immersion Training, where we really immerse in a specific discipline of coaching. And this particular discipline I call the assessment discipline. And it's a discipline that's unlike any other discipline of coaching in that it's not specific to like some technique. It's not specific to some like particular method of what to say or some process or strategy to use with a client. It's not about how you coach someone per se, your style, your communication. More so, it's about utilizing a tool that as coaches can help us to coach faster, higher, and farther than we would without. That's the whole point of really today, is to talk about why assessment coaching as a coaching discipline, as a discipline through which you can coach your clients, not a strategy, not a technique, not something to say, not some 3-step process or something like that, but a way to discipline your approach to working with your clients in a way where it's really the killer app for your client. Now, we would hope as coaches that we already know, hey, like working with me is the killer app for my client. It's going to make a difference for them. This is just this is an aspect, this is a dimension of what you can add or what you can bring to the table as a coach for your clients that would make a radical difference in actually being able to actually bring them results faster, take them higher than they ever would before, and then also go farther with them, farther into their lives. And I'm also going to include, I didn't have time to write this down, but that you could go deeper with them as well. All because you have this, I hate to say it, a crutch, but all because you have this tool, better way to say it, that you can leverage with your ability to read the results, with your ability to translate those results and explain those results to your client. And then also, ultimately, as a great coach, your ability to coach your client, taking advantage of what you just learned or what they just learned, and the awareness and the realizations that you can generate there. That does have an impact on strategy. That does have an impact on the value that you can offer your clients. So that's really what we're talking about today. How assessment coaching, or why assessment coaching, is the killer app for your coaching business. And I want to get into this idea of faster, higher, farther, deeper in just a minute. But before I do, I want to give you an explanation here. Actually, I forgot to check to see that we're actually live. Okay, we're looking okay there. I'm just checking Facebook. Are we still live on Facebook? All right, Facebook. Okay, it seems to show that we're live on Facebook. So I don't see any Facebook comments. So Facebook is the devil, of course. So we don't expect much. But anyway, all right. So I just want to explain a little background about how this actually came about for me, how I actually started to use these tools, and finally actually started really getting some extraordinary results with my clients using assessment tools, some fairly simple tools to use. Starting out as a coach, I'll tell you, one of the big kind of crisis moments I had in my coaching business was when I realized my coaching wasn't making a difference. When one day I just kind of woke up out of the blue after like years of working with clients, just almost like blindly believing I'm valuable for my clients. I really help them. This coaching thing is the best thing since sliced bread for them. I'm the killer app for them. Like I don't even want to say confident. I think I was to some extent confident, but just a believer in what I gave to my clients. I just really thought that I was just so valuable to them, that the coaching I gave them at least was so valuable to them. And then one day I woke up and I thought to myself, I'm not giving these clients anything that they weren't already going to have. I'm not causing any results that they weren't already gonna get. They like me. They love talking to me. They enjoy the coaching. They have a good experience, but like in terms of actual results, like they're just not getting those results. Now, for those of you that have been through assessment training, or I'm sorry, accountability training, you know that the main kind of killer app I added at that time that made a giant difference in getting measurable results was accountability. The difference between having an idea about something or knowing something or feeling good about it and actually doing it is usually accountability for your clients. There's a whole nother immersion training. But I will also tell you this, that during that same period of time, I really felt weak in my ability to pinpoint my clients' limitations, to really work out what their strengths were, and just as important or more importantly, to be able to explain that to them in a way where they could appreciate it and understand it. Because sometimes I would get a sense of what might be going on with my client. I could get a sense of what their strengths were. I could get a sense of what's great about them. And it was really challenging to actually get that across to them so they could get it. You ever had that experience in a coaching session? It's like, I know something's going on, but I can't exactly put my finger on it. Or I can put my finger on what's going on, but like somehow I can't get through to my client. I can't reach them. And then finally, like just knowing, what do I do about this? What am I going to do? And look, I've always had a clear vision for myself as a coach from the get-go as to like, hey, there's solutions, there's things I could tell them, there's things I could teach them, there's strategies I can use, there's processes I could take them through, and I would do those things. It's not like I wasn't in a shortage for content or knowledge. I wasn't in a shortage for techniques. I mean, having been trained for 30 days by Tony Robbins and having worked for him for over a year with hundreds of clients, like I wasn't at a shortage for techniquing my clients, right? But specifically what to do about the challenge or about the strength, knowing what the goals were that my clients had, I wasn't very clear about that. And it wasn't because I couldn't diagnose. It wasn't because I didn't have a sense of it. It was because it was hard to pinpoint exactly what the source of the issue was, exactly what the cause was, so to speak, and then exactly the solution as well. I knew a lot of ideas about what those could be. I had a lot of inklings. I had some intuitions, but I couldn't seem to synthesize, or I couldn't seem to like create a precipitate out of those intuitions. Have you ever had that experience where you're like, you have a gut feeling about a client? Sorry, I'm losing my nose. And yet you have trouble bringing that together into a plan for them. You have trouble bringing that together into a way to communicate that to them. That was what I was experiencing at the time. And so, and also, speaking of faster, I could not seem to get them results fast enough. They would show up. I would convince them that they needed to work with me. They'd sign up for coaching. A couple of months in, they would quit. And I was trying to figure out why. Now, look, I mean, again, to be fair, some of it was lack of accountability on my part as well, bringing that to them. But that's, again, another training, another story. But part of it was they just weren't getting enough insights, enough results, enough critical strategies fast enough. And so, like, look, I mean, coaching as a relationship takes time to build it, and I would always, after a while, realize that I need to get my clients to sign up for a kind of a minimum length of coaching for me and for them, so that they've got time to produce the results. At the time, I really wasn't doing that. Well, that was a mistake in and of itself. But there was still, obviously, on my client's part, they were clear, at least, that they should have gotten different results faster, and that it wasn't worth it, the fee and the time, etc., to stick around. And I couldn't impact all the moving parts in their life or their business. Like I could coach the owner of a business, but I wasn't making a difference for the rest of their business. And so the rest of their business is huge. It might be 20 people or 15 people or 150 people. It's like, I'm not making a difference there. I'm not impacting beyond just a personal conversation which is great. It's great to have that intimate connection with a client or with your coach, so they really appreciate you and can intuit things and can listen. But like, there was a lack of impact. And ultimately, like I said, I was indicating this before, I couldn't reach them. I couldn't like convince them with what I knew to make the change that they needed to make. So these are the kind of things I was experiencing, I was going through. But I was really lucky at this time as well, because during this time, as I mentioned before, I was working for Tony for a couple years. I left. I started my own practice. And when we got trained at Tony Robbins, it wasn't just Tony that would train us. It was all of his coaches and his gurus and his trainers, right? So people that, ran his sales organization and people that, helped him start his coaching division would all come in. I mean, Joseph McClendon, his head trainer, would come in and gave us the Date with Destiny content and just all this stuff that we were going through over a period of like 25, 30 days or so when we were getting trained. So one of the guys that came in for several days actually was a gentleman named Robert. Now, Robert was the reason why Tony started his coaching organization, because without Robert, Tony would not have gotten his coaching division started. There would be no coaching, even to this day, from Tony Robbins. Probably there would be, but let's put it this way. It wouldn't be in the same form it is currently because of what Robert provided. So Robert really helped him get his business started. And he came in for like 3 days to teach us the stuff that I'm about to share with you. And I learned it. And then we had all these tools at Tony Robbins, all the assessment tools, and I had those results on people. And they used these tools to like match us up with our clients for a while. But I really underused the tool. Like, I had it there and I thought, that's nice. And now I'm going to go do my coaching stuff that Tony taught me to do. Right? Have you ever had that experience where you've been given something, but because you have so much available, you have so many things, so many choices as what you could use to produce a result, that you like just set some of the stuff to the side? It reminds me, a friend of mine shared with me this amazing tool yesterday. I'm not going to get into what it is, but it's like totally could revolutionize how we create content for our business, and showed it to me for like an hour. And I'm like, look, I don't have any more time. I got to run and do my work. And I was thinking, like, gosh, if I didn't set that tool aside, where would our business be? Right? I just kind of pushed it to the side. And I'll look into it more and all that. But like, there's only so many hours in the day to actually use what you have to use. And there's only so much time with your client, of course, to do what you need to do with them. And so I took this amazing tool that Robert had shared with us and that Tony had purchased and employed Robert to train us in for 3 days out of, like, it was more than 10% of the training. And Tony's got some amazing, epic stuff to show for all of us coaches. And I just didn't really use it. I mean, I knew what it was. I would review it with my client at first, and it was kind of an underlying understanding that I had, but I underutilized that tool. Let's put it that way. So, but I was lucky enough to meet this guy. And then later on, he actually, after many of us had left Tony and we went into our own practices and we started our own businesses and we're all coaching kind of independently, he gave a seminar, and we all got back together with him in this seminar around our coaching businesses and being great coaches. And he started a group at that time where we started working with him in this group as great coaches. And we were learning how to be better coaches, learning how to build our practices, all that good stuff. And this guy is making like $1 million a year at the time as a coach. So he was no slouch. I mean, Tony's definitely bigger business than him, but he was no slouch. So we're in this group with him, and slowly, I don't know if you've ever run a group with clients, but if there's no commitment as to how long they stick around, they slowly kind of leave, right? And he had put this group together based upon this one seminar that we did, and so he wasn't feeding it with new people. So slowly, some of these fellow coaches that are in the group with me, they started tapering down, and finally got to the point where there were so few people in the group that he couldn't justify running the group, and he closed the group. And so I said, I can't stop working with Robert. I need his help. I'm still struggling as a coach here. So I signed up for one-on-one coaching with him, and we worked together for months and months after that. And it was money I didn't have at the time, but it was an investment I absolutely had to make. So sometime during the work that I had with him, he told me, Jeff, these assessments are tools that will help you grow your business, and they're going to make a huge difference for your clients. You got to use them. And so when I left Tony, I left those tools. Like, I wasn't using that stuff. I knew about it, but I wasn't using the tool at all with my clients. So I was lucky enough where he convinced me to take on, like, really getting certified in these tools. And I remember the day when I went to a conference where it was filled with coaches that were using these tools. There were thousands of coaches that were using these tools. And I met all these different coaches, and they were all doing like 6 figures, 7 figures. And they weren't like internet marketers. They weren't like, most of them, at least. There were a few of them there that were speakers, but most of them weren't platform speakers. They were just like consultants and coaches. Now, and again, today we're not talking about the money you can make, and how this expands your business. I should talk about that also. We'll get to it at some point during these live streams. But I was just blown away. I was like, how are all these like mediocre coaches making all this money? And after a while, I learned they were using the tools that I had learned that I had set aside. They were primarily using those tools as their main coaching, training, and consulting tool. Now, again, these guys were mostly working with businesses, to be fair. And this isn't just about business coaching. And I think that's one of the factors that is one of the reasons why they were making so much money as well, because businesses have the budget, for to pay a coach, where individuals sometimes may or may not, right? But I realized that day that Robert had convinced me to get going with assessments, primarily because it was a business tool. But little did I know that would radically transform my ability to help my clients. So now, fast forward to today, I work with the largest companies in the world. I mean, you judge, the size of a company in many different ways, but one of them is by revenue. If you look at the largest companies measured by revenue, we coach those companies. My team it's not me personally, but my team does. And we work with some of the most successful coaching businesses in the world as well, multi-million-dollar coaching businesses. Every one of those big impact projects that I'm a part of, or my team is a part of, why we're on those projects? Now, yes, part of it's because we're good coaches. I'm not going to say that's not correct. I mean, we have great technology, we have great coaches, and we really provide results through just purely our skills. But the main reason why we're on those projects is because of these assessment tools. We wouldn't even have any of those jobs at the scale we have them at, and with the level, how lucrative they are for us, if we didn't use these tools. I could guarantee you that. Now, I'm not going to get into the reasons why, but I never would have done all of those things that I just explained to you without these assessments. I could tell you that right now. So let's talk about this faster, higher, farther, because really your clients need coaching that goes faster. Like, they want results fast, right? They don't want to spend a year with you to wait around for the results. They want deeper results, of course. I mean, coaches, we're legendary for like really valuing and appreciating how deep the results should be for our clients. Like, that's what they're paying for. They want us to go deep with them. They want higher level results. They want to achieve more. They want bigger results, so to speak. And they want to also be able to go higher level with us, to be able to expand and go wide, if you will. And then finally, they want us to be able to go farther with them. They need coaching that goes faster, deeper, higher, and farther than most coaching that you will tend to provide without the right assessment tools. And that's, in my experience, just a fact. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't be able to do some amazing coaching without an assessment. I know you will, probably, with the skills that you learn or that you can learn out there in the world of coaching. But you just won't go as far. You won't go as fast. You won't go as high. You won't go as deep. You just won't without at least the assessment tools I'm going to share with you. And there are many others that you can utilize that can make a difference as well. We use assessment tools that are used by the Fortune 500 and the government. We use the ones that are empirically validated by many face validation studies in universities. So we know the results are accurate, or at least to like a 90 to 100% accuracy. So there's always some wiggle room there in terms of accuracy. There's no perfect assessment, but we know that they work. So let's talk about, well, actually, let me give you a deeper explanation of this, speaking of deeper, and then we'll get into each of these areas and how the assessment actually becomes the killer app for you and your client. Clients want results faster. They want results immediately, right? They want results that provide deeper insights beyond what they can come up with on their own. They want to understand how to move to higher level results, and they want you to go farther into their life and business to ferret out the most value possible. I think I already said that, but my notes, I always want to stay honest with my notes. So think of it this way, like assessments are like steroids for your coaching business. They're like steroids for your coaching, for your client, without the side effects, right? It's like when people are working out, they're pumping iron, they're trying to get the big muscles, they're trying to like, who's that guy that, his name escapes me right now, but he was doping, he was blood doping Lance Armstrong, right? And he was always winning all of the events, you know, in biking, a Tour de France, etc., right? Cycling, and then they discovered, you know, he was boosting his results, right? He was taking basically steroids. Now later on, we discovered that the whole industry was doing that because nobody could even compete without it, basically, de facto. But of course, Lance had side effects. You got testicular cancer as a result of the steroids that he was taking. These steroids don't do that to you. There's not going to be a side effect. Now, if you don't use them well, if you don't use them in a way that puts them in their place, yes, there could be some downsides to using tools like this, right? We can overuse tools, right? We can decide that the tool is everything and forget about the client, right? We can decide that we don't need any other skills. Like a lot of those coaches I met that were doing six figures, like they didn't really have tremendous coaching skills. They were good leaders, but I mean, they were just overusing the assessment a lot of times and underusing their own skills that they could have learned, right? So there are ways to misuse this stuff, but you're not going to get side effects from just using a tool, generally speaking. So let's talk about going deeper. So this is one of the things that coaches like really appreciate almost universally. So how can I show this? Okay, so let's say your client, like my client Chris, your client really values freedom, and my client Chris values freedom quite a bit. Brand new client, just started working with him last couple months. Thinks freedom is the most important thing in his life, and like you can discover that by asking a bunch of questions over a period of sessions, right? You can profile your client and say, well, they're an entrepreneur, so they probably want freedom, right? And just kind of roll the dice, play the averages. But it's going to take you time to do that, obviously. And in addition to that, once you realize that, how can you actually bring that insight to your client in a way where they're going to buy into it? Because sometimes people will doubt what you share with them. And then how can you bring it to them in such a way where they really take it on and experience it and then have some actionable transformation out of that? And look, we know there's all sorts of Socratic questioning, dialogues that we could do. There's authority plays that we can make. I mean, there's all sorts of different approaches, techniques, and strategies for what I just said. But think of it this way. When you want to go deep with your client, if you can objectify the esoteric insights that you offer them, which sounds like it's a negative, like I don't want to objectify my client. I don't want to label them. I'm not talking about your client. I'm talking about the insights. So for instance, like with this client, Chris, he had, I'm not going to draw his exact assessment, but Chris had his values, and we graph out his values. And we had, let's say, his money value. And I'm simplifying this. I'm not getting into the jargon at this point. I just want to make this translate across really simple. And his money value was here. We had like a little bar graph that showed, how valuable that was to him. And then he had his, let's call it contribution value. And his contribution value is here. And then he had his knowledge value, like valuing knowledge. And his knowledge value is here. And then we had freedom. And his freedom value was like, it was like this, right? It was pretty, it dominated the whole graph, right? Now, look, again, I could just talk about this esoteric thing with Chris. Okay. I can just say, well, it seems like you want freedom, and tell me about freedom, and how does that impact you to have that, be really important to you? And, how are you going to get freedom when you achieve your goals, like working with a goal, value fit, like, the drill. Okay. I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know. However, I've got this graph on Chris, and I can see it. And so instantly, of course, I know what might have taken me months to figure out through Socratic dialogue with Chris before. And Chris has this as well. And I'm going over this with Chris. So now I've objectified this. Freedom is kind of esoteric, right? I mean, I can't show you freedom. But now I have a picture of how the freedom value compares with other values. That took Chris 10 minutes to get this result. And then it took me like 5 seconds to, in a blink of an eye, see the result, right? And it's the same for Chris. As soon as I explained to him what these values mean and what they're about, and like what hey, this, like, it goes over to the right, the farther over to the right, the more intense. That's just intensity. That's your intensity score, right? So, hey, contribution's not very intense for you. Money's fairly intense, but freedom, look at that. You're off the charts as far as your intensity of how much you value freedom. I not only can explain that to him quite quickly, but I've objectified the esoteric insight. I've objectified it. I've made this, like, this isn't just some air floating around Chris now. This is a graph on a page that he sees in a picture. This is like an object now, right? It's a thing. I've turned this concept into an object. I've objectified the esoteric aspects of coaching, or at least this aspect of, his values. Now, as a result of that, and this, by the way, I did what you might call a discovery session, which is just an initial paid session that I run with clients. I don't do free sessions anymore. And Chris had his graphs already from something he had done in the past, and he sent these to me before the session. So I had additional insights that normally I would have, because I don't run these, for an initial session usually. I only do these when people sign up for coaching, generally speaking. Sometimes there's exceptions to that. I'm not going to get into that today. But so I'd seen this. And so during that initial session, I told him, Chris, look at your freedom value. Look how high it is. Now, Chris was struggling in his business at this point, and he said, the reason I'm struggling in my business is because of COVID. It's because, COVID came up, and I run an event-based business, and now there's no events. And so my business is going through the floor. And I said, Chris, there's more than just COVID going on here. The way you've run your business, and he had explained to me how he runs his business. I said, look, the way you've run your business, you run it by the seat of your pants. You're an entrepreneur. You're doing all these different opportunities. You're going after novelty all the time. He had started like 3 different businesses in 3 years. Okay. He had one very successful business that was challenged at this point because of COVID. But then besides that, he's got his finger in all these different pots, right? And after talking to him a little bit, I discovered that he wasn't going very deep in any of these businesses. He was skating along the surface. And his goal was, I want to make like millions of dollars over the next 8 years. I think his number was like 2 or 3 million in additional investments, so that he can live off that and have, you guessed it, freedom, right? So that's his dream. And so I got his goal, and his goal was basically it was an expression of his values. But I said, look at how you're running your business. You're running them. You're not going deep with them. You're not really committed to grinding out what's needed to generate the business that you need long term. You'll never be free if that's the way you play your business. But let me tell you why you're doing that, Chris, from my perspective. And again, I'm paraphrasing. You want freedom so much that one of the ways that you get freedom is by trying new things all the time. So in your business, you don't just get the thing to work over and over again. You like try something else in your business, and then you try something else. And the things that have worked in your business, you just kind of set them aside and you move on to something else, because you want the freedom of just being spontaneous, doing whatever you want in your business. And then you've done new businesses because you're so excited about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And one of the reasons why you're not, buckling down and doing the hard work that is absolutely required in any and every business that you'll ever own in order to get to the point where you're generating millions of dollars in free cash flow is because you'll feel like that's taken away your freedom. And freedom's like the most important thing in life to you. Like, this is the ultimate bell of life that you want to ring, and you don't get to ring it because you want to run a business. It's like, what do you think is going to happen there, Chris? And so Chris had a business where it was dependent on an operations manager. The operations manager was quitting, and all of a sudden he was saddled with this big business that he didn't have time to run, and it was not doing well. It was kind of failing, he said, because of COVID. And I'm telling him it's this freedom thing. And the reason why a lot of this issue was happening was because he hadn't systemized his business, and he hadn't gone deep in his business and all the different systems for marketing and sales and operations of fulfillment, all this different stuff. It was just like, seat of the pants, give it to this guy, let him run it. The guy's quitting, so now he's basically had a job, right? And by the way, when you have a job rather than a business, does that give you freedom or take away freedom when you have a job? No, a job robs you of your freedom, right? That's why nobody likes jobs, right? We want a business because that can give you freedom. So now he just had a job, which was taking away his freedom, which was giving him massive pain. So I explained all this to Chris at the time. I said, look, the reason why you're here and you're in so much pain is not because of COVID, it's not because of your business, not because of your operations manager. It's because of you, and your freedom value has driven you away from all the things that you've missed doing in your business. You haven't created your systems. You haven't solidified these different aspects of your business. You haven't ground out the results. You haven't made it so that operations manager is easily replaceable because you have no systems. This thing is just a big job. And I stopped for a second, as coaches tend to do, and gave him a little bit of space to really, think about it. He said, Jeff, you're totally right. Like, I haven't thought about that yet, but the whole reason why business is failing, the whole reason why I'm not getting where I want to be, I'm not even close to where I want to be, is because I'm so wanting freedom that it's keeping me from doing the things that would actually set me free, or so to speak. Again, I'm paraphrasing what Chris said back to me. That's basically what I covered in that first session. And immediately he signed up for coaching, and we're continuing to make a difference for Chris as we work together. But the point of this is, I was able to go really deep with Chris during that session, and I could have done it without the tool, but this was very fast. I immediately knew what was going on. And then he just gave me more details about how he organized the whole thing and kind of his story and background. And it showed him what was esoteric and hard to put your finger on. And it showed it to him in a way where he could grab it and hold on to it and say, that's it. And that was just from one session. How many sessions would that normally take, by the way? Speaking of faster, and we talked about deeper here, but how long would it normally take a coach to actually get to that? Even a really great coach who asks amazing questions, they might take 6 months to get to that. It took me 6 minutes. Okay, so let's talk about faster now. I'm going to draw something else for you. Let's do next page here. Apologize about all the drawing, but didn't quite have time to prepare really beautiful flip chart stuff for you today. So let's talk about faster. Your client, as we talked about a second ago, they need to get results as quickly as humanly possible. They don't want to sit around, wait around. In fact, that's one of the things that coaching is notorious for as a profession, is taking so long to get somewhere that people just blow it off or they undervalue it and they don't appreciate it. And of course, a lot of the coaching world points the finger at them and says, you know, the world doesn't appreciate us because they're so surface level. They don't want to go deep. They're too impatient, right? So we critique them. The fact is that if you want to be competitive as a coach and you want to really make sure you get the kind of impact that you want, you need to be able to attract people that want fast results as well. Not just people that are willing to work with you for 2 years to try to finally figure things out, right? So let's talk about faster. Let's say there's 2 coaches. I'm going to draw this on separate, make 2 separate pictures here. So this is coach number 1. And coach number 1, let's draw the coach. Always like to get the picture here. So coach number 1, they're amazing coach. They go deep with their client. They provide phenomenal results. But, you know, they don't have any assessment tools, right? So they're just going to start off slowly and slowly build results. Think of this as like the results. Okay. So they're going to slowly build results over time. Now, here's coach number 2. Once again, 2 arms, 2 legs. Coach number 2, however, coach number 2 has assessments. And coach number 2 knows how to use them. And coach number 2, in a blink of an eye, can figure out a lot of what's going on with a client and share it in a way that objectifies those in-depth, those esoteric insights so the client can get their hands on it. They can really appreciate it and understand it and get into a deeper conversation then with the client rather than just expecting the client to stick around. So this coach, as a result, gets instant results. Let's say, you know, this is the beginning of the coaching relationship, first session, second session. They're getting results very quickly with their client. Now, they're giving them a lot very quickly because those graphs can really help objectify those esoteric insights, go really in depth, go farther with a client than they ever normally would in the first couple months or a couple sessions. Now, you know, there might be a little drop off in those results over time just because, hey, they give them so much so quickly, right, at the beginning. So that's fair. But, you know, at some point, they're going to maintain those results as well. Now, look, at this point in the relationship, this is, let's say, 1 year. This point in the relationship, you know, these guys are getting level 10 results. These guys are getting level 10 results. So that's fine after a year. But what about, you know, 2 sessions in or 1 month? I don't know what this would be, but you get the idea, right? On the time scale, maybe this is a session or 2. So this is level, let's say, 2 results. This is level 12. It's like Spinal Tap. We turned it up to 11, right? On a 0 to 10 scale. So this new client hired 2 coaches, or they did 2 discovery sessions with 2 different coaches. Coach number 1 doesn't use assessment. Coach number 2 does, assuming what I'm talking about is accurate. Again, you got to kind of buy into this, but hopefully you get the concept. Which coach are you going with? Which program are you going to commit to? Which coach are you going to really believe in and follow them wherever they go? Is it going to be the one that got you level 2 results in a month or a session or 2, or the one that got you level 12 results? we both can get you great results. We're both amazing coaches. It's just going to take, number one, longer. This is about speed, not this is not about value. Does that make sense? This is not about depth. This is not about impact. These are all the master coaches. Everybody, they're all master coaches. They have amazing impact in the world. They can reach people. Amazing leaders, in their chosen niche, or maybe just as life coaches. We're talking. I mean, same results, right? But this is just in like days or a month or an hour for coach number 2. Coach number 1, takes them a year. So, I mean, again, I'm trying to oversimplify it here a little bit, and it's an unfair comparison to some extent, obviously, because the tools this individual has, but which coach are you going to be? And that's all I'm asking you. So I'll give you an example of faster. There is a gentleman who is a client of ours right now. His name is Paco. And in our last certification, we were actually demonstrating the assessments within one of the weeks certification training. We actually get into these assessments and we look at use cases for them. So Paco stepped up and he said, "Hey, coach me, show me what my assessments tell you about me." And it took me about 10 seconds to see and to nail why Paco wasn't succeeding. And I'll show you the graph. I think I made my point with this. So I'll show you the graph. So basically, this is a 4-quadrant behavioral graph, and it looked something like this. And again, I'm simplifying this for the purpose of translation. So it's four items here. And, this is like kind of in the middle. And so these are low and these are high. And so the ones that were high were like things around speed, speed of achieving goals, fun, connecting. And I'm overdoing it here. I mean, we don't even need to go any farther, but let's put it this way. This was this individual's patience. All right. This is their patience level, is way down here. Okay. This was their, what do they call, persistence. I'm sure I'm misspelling all of this, but you get the idea. This is their patience and persistence, right? Now, by the way, this was their detail orientation. Okay. So you get the kind of person this is. They're all about speed, achieving goals, having fun and connecting, going out there, being a mover or a shaker. They're not about patience and persistence and detail and going through like being a librarian about everything, right? They're the opposite of that. So among other things, I saw some other things in his graph as well that helped me to do this. But as soon as I looked at his graph, and this is not a unique pattern, I've seen this probably over 100 times in my history in the last 2 decades as a coach in business and in careers and things like that. And so I said, Paco, let me just tell you what's going on here. You are trying to be everything, and really mainly you're the promoter and the expander and you're the crusader in your business. And you're trying to be the operations person. You're trying to do all the detail. You're trying to do all the coaching. You're trying to do everything. But that's not you. And in fact, one of the reasons why you failed in your last business, which he explained it to me. One of the reasons why you failed in your last business was because you were so impatient, for speed and results, that you finally said, you know what, I'm just going to do something else. And you keep moving from business to business to business in order to just try to get the speed because your patience is so low. So you need to be more patient probably in order to actually achieve in any business what you really want. However, what I also see is that because you're so goal-oriented and because you're so good at connecting with people, you need to be, whoop, I'm so excited about this. Okay. You need to be one promoting. You need to be the one selling, and then let everybody else kind of do all the day-to-day persistent work that takes months and months with your clients, because you're so kind of impatient. We want to employ that impatience in a positive way. We want to make that impatience pay off for you, right? And where impatience can pay off is in sales. Anybody who's impatient enough, like if I'm working with a prospective client and they're like, well, maybe I'll sign up for this, maybe I won't, maybe I'll buy, maybe I won't. It's like, if I'm impatient enough, if I'm goal oriented enough, I'm going to be like, what are you talking about? You could get these results today. Like, you can't wait. This might not be around tomorrow. A little bit of urgency, right? Now, people talk about how that might be a manipulation, and obviously there's a lot of sales resistance out there. But the fact is, a good salesperson who's impatient and urgent and goal-oriented, they can get somebody off their ass, right? They can get them to actually not just buy a product, but produce a result they never would have produced had they not bought the product. That's the strength. And so many of us shoot that down, but it's like, in Paco, he had it in spades, and I was like, that's you, Paco. So I was like, Paco, you need to outsource these other things or hire people to do these other things. Let them clean up the mess. You go out and fight the crusade. It's not going to be pretty sometimes, but it's going to be chaotic. That's natural with this type of graph. But like, go out there and actually like just pound the pavement, expand the business, grow, grow, grow. You're going to be satisfied. Your impatience is going to be satisfied. You'll achieve the goals. Plus, you're causing other people to have goals. You're using your strengths, and the business can thrive. And just make sure you stick with it long enough so that's actually possible. And that's the biggest thing I'm worried about with you, Paco. So I'm going to work with you on that. And he signed up for our private client program. We're still working on that to this day. So that took me 10 seconds to see that. How long do you think the average coach would take to see that, if ever? Now, yes, they could look at their behavior. They could get background. I mean, you can get pages and pages of the story and the narrative from that client and take hours and hours. It took me 10 seconds. Okay. So Paco's working with me because of that, partially, other reasons as well. But that kind of experience that you can offer your clients of speed. And then, I mean, it's not just like how quickly you can discover what's going on and go deep with them and cause the transformation based upon a real insight that is, objectified because it's in a graph. And so it's not just esoteric phenomena that you're just like out in planet Pluto and people are like, oh, there's that weird coach again, like out in space. I mean, isn't that what JP Sears, like the guy that's always making fun of the world of personal growth and enlightenment, talks about? It's like how kind of off the rails we are when we get esoteric. It's like, well, no, graph what's esoteric. Like, let's make it empirical. Let's make it measurable. Let's make it provable. Let's make it real. Isn't that what personal growth and all this stuff that we are so excited about is all about, is making our dreams real? We don't want to just dream. We want to actually take action and do something with it. We don't want to just have a feeling about something. We want to actually put our finger on it and discover it and become its master. Because if we're just like talking about it, we're just like feeling it, well, then it's our master, not the other way around, because we don't have mastery over it. So I want dominion over all these esoteric aspects of my life and my client's life, for that matter. And I want to have it fast. And that was the point with what I just shared with you about what I did with Paco. It's like, this was 10 seconds, and it took me about 5 minutes to talk it through with Paco, to the point where he transformed right before our eyes. And he still transforms to this day as a result of that. It took me 10 seconds to nail why Paco wasn't succeeding, which is this impatience thing, and not being where he needed to be in his business because he was trying to be all things to all people, which people with this graph will tend to do because they're tremendous, I don't want to say ego, but confidence, let's put it that way, because they know they could just do anything. And they can, but these are areas that are not as they're not as strong for them. And then we talked about how he could succeed, of course, as well. And that's like a 5-minute conversation. Show me the coach that's going to do that without these tools. Very few. Now, some coaches are so experienced. Like I know when I studied with Tony, we learned this about Tony. It's like, yeah, Tony's worked with like millions of people. I mean, he used to be on the road like 250 days a year, 275 days a year, something like that, just running seminars the whole time. And every seminar, I mean, if you've ever been at a Tony seminar, you know, it's not just speaking. He's not just like giving a presentation. He's coaching and then coaching and then coaching and then coaching and then coaching. He'll coach, 30, 40 people a day and then do group work too. So it's like, and it's not just the crowd, it's the number of interactions. So somebody like that, they can see patterns and they can intuit patterns much more quickly. Now, look, if that's you, that's great. And also these insights in various ways can still speed up your process because you still have things that you may not notice or see or key in on just because your intuition is like kind of everywhere at once. You can't necessarily see everything at the same time. You have to consciously focus on one thing at a time. I can see like the promoter and the speed and the goals and the fun and connecting, patience, persistence, and detail. I can see all this in one picture. Not as easy to intuit that, even if you have the experience with seeing a client and hearing how they talk and seeing what they do, to be able to gather all of that without seeing it on a graph. So part of what makes this fast is that a picture's worth 1,000 insights, right? A picture's worth 1,000 words, as they say. Words are one way to communicate an insight or to solidify an insight. So this picture, I mean, I've got a whole story behind this picture that might take me an hour to tell, but I can see it in a blink of an eye, right? No coach, I don't care, Tony Robbins or anybody, they're not going to gather all of this up consciously, at least, in one picture because they don't have the picture, because they're feeling that client rather than seeing what that looks like on paper. And I don't want to say we should objectify our clients completely, but this is faster. It's just faster. Seeing is faster than feeling. It just is. Those different rep systems are useful in a variety of ways, and you want to go visual if you want speed. You don't want to go kinesthetic. And so many coaches go kinesthetic. It's just an NLP term for, feeling and going kind of with your gut. Going into that space, that feeling space, is going to take you longer to get conscious about all the myriad and lexicon of words and stories and elements that you might see in a graph very quickly. Not to mention, also going to take you longer to share it with your client because you can't just show them the picture. Paco and I were working on this picture, so I just showed him the picture and said, look, this is it. I know this pattern. This is a Z graph. This is a go-getter. This is a charismatic leader. You go out there and win the crusade and win the battles, and everybody else cleans up the mess. That's the business. I've seen this 1,000,000 times before. I could share it very quickly as well. So that's just one example of speed. By the way, we talked about we want to go higher as well, getting more results. Can you imagine what kind of increase in results that provided Paco when he knows the division of labor for his business, when he understands what his strengths and weaknesses are? He can actually slow down through more persistence because he knows that's a weakness for him, and then actually end up going faster as a result, because it's not very fast to go 1 inch forward in 10 different areas. You stack those inches, all of a sudden you're going a mile forward in one specific area. You're focused, so to speak. So that's exactly what I told Paco, by the way, is I told him to focus on the selling and the promotion, that one area where he can go mile far, and again, let others do the rest. So that's higher level results as well. Okay, final area is going farther. And going farther is an interesting one because this is something that I don't see a lot of coaches do. And it's an area that I think is lost on most coaches. Yes, you can go far down a road with a client, just one-on-one working with them. But, a client, when you work with a coaching client, you're not just working, every client is a whole life, not just body, mind, and soul. Right? You can work with them physically. You can work with them mentally. You can work with them emotionally or spiritually, if you want to call it that. But that's just working it's just working with one entity. And your client's life is more than just them. Does that make sense? It's like, if you look at, I think we got room for this on the page. If you look at your client, again, 2 arms, 2 legs, hopefully. You can just coach that body, that mind, that, I don't want to put it down there, but you get the idea. Spirit. It's not where it is, but you get the idea. They're going to have okay results from that. But guess what? Your client is so much more than just this one entity, or at least their life is, right? Your client is your client. But if you're a life coach or a business coach, you're coaching them on their life. What are we missing here? What else is going on? Well, you've got other people. Okay, you've got other people around them. You're not coaching them. You're not considering them. Now, you might talk to your client about those other people in their life, but you don't really know what's going on there. What about their business? Say in their business or their career. Same thing, right? There's more people. Businesses are made up of multiple people. So we're not dealing with that. And so, yeah, we can make our client into Superwoman or Superman, right? You just take them, put a little S, right? Because they're so super, right? But if we don't deal with the rest of their business, the rest of their life, like what's going to win out? There's so many different people. There's so many different circumstances. We got to deal with this stuff too. Now, you talk about that in a session, sure, but I want to go farther than just this little box of working with the client only in this case. So how do I do that? Well, life is a team sport. And so your client has even if they're not a business person, they have a team in their life. They have a wife or husband, they have kids, they have parents, they have friends, they do probably have coworkers, at least if they have any kind of career at all. There's people around them. And so I want to consider those things. There is in business, like if you're coaching somebody in business and they're like a solopreneur, they probably need to build a team like Paco, because Paco's only one type of person. He's not all things to all people. He needs other people around there. He needs a team to shore up what he's not going to have time to do and what he's maybe not the best in the world at, or what he hates doing, or all of the above, to really have the great life that he would want, the great business that he would want. And so I want to consider these other people as well. So in business, if they don't exist, if these people aren't around, I want to help Paco or any of my clients. I want to help find these people and select who's best to be on that team. By the way, if you're creating a life and let's say you're a relationship coach and you're working with somebody on finding their life mate, well, you might want to have a sense of what the candidates to select are and what makes them tick. I mean, there are literally dating apps that do this. They will run psychographic profilings on people to match them up, right? So, I mean, I know if I had graphs on, some of the people I had dated in the past, I probably wouldn't have continued that relationship for as long as I had. But the point of the matter is, life is a team sport, business is a team sport, and you've got to build that team a lot of times. Sometimes people start out with very little team. And so building that team, how can I use assessments in order to do that? Well, they can go out and look at people that they might want to build a team with. And then instead of just, hire them and see if it works out, or date them and see if it works out, you can run a graph. Now, that might be a little weird in dating situations, like, hey, let's go out, but first, could you take this assessment? Okay, I get that. But after a couple months of dating, chances are it's socially understandable that, hey, I'm curious what your results would be here, and let's see how we match up or not, right? So it's doable, let's put it that way, even if it's a little outside the norm. So, but the point of the matter is, instead of just, going in blind, I can go farther with my client into their life, into their business, past them, into these other parts of their life that are literally their life in a big way. All the people around you, the places around you, the things around you, that's like your life other than just you, right? It's the air, it's the wind beneath your wings, so to speak. It's the it's like it's the water to the fish, right? It's you're swimming within that. I just saw that the other day. That one of the live streams we did last semester was your peer group is your life. Like it's like air to the bird, water to the fish, and it's your life. Your life that you're in is like the people around you, right? The people around you is the quality of your life, the resources you have, their resources, the emotions you have or their emotions. Like that group dynamic is insanely impactful. And so instead of just guessing at these people, like if I'm working with a solopreneur, I do this every day. We run a graph on that potential assistant or operations manager or whomever, and we say, what's predictable knowing this graph? So if Paco meets somebody who's like Paco, and Paco's like, this guy's great, they're amazing, they're just like me, I'm going to hire them. Well, then you got two Indian chiefs, and they're just going to have a battle, or they're both going to go separate ways and just start different businesses. I mean, that's not going to work out. Paco needs somebody that's the opposite of Paco. And Paco may not like that person initially because he doesn't get rapport with them because they're different. They're more introverted. They're more of a scientist. They're more of a librarian. And they're like, I don't know if I get this person. They're a little odd. They're a little off. They're a little weird. I don't know if they're like me. But that's probably exactly who Paco needs in his business so he can go out and fight the battles, right? So I can see that on a graph in 10 seconds. And people who don't build teams don't build businesses. People who try to build teams usually fail initially because they don't know who they're hiring, and they don't even know how to manage them, and they don't know the systems to set in place. And there's a lot of mistakes that can happen there. So what I'm there to do is work with them on all that stuff. But one of the ways I can help them select a better person initially and speed up that process is through running graphs on the candidates. We do that every day. That is a team building area where I can go farther than normally a coach will go with their client, at least in business, if not in other aspects of their life. Superman or not. Now, when it comes to the group dynamics, let's say they already have a team. Well, what I want to know is, what are the dynamics of that team? Because this team, if you ever notice that you get 2 or 3 people together, they become their own entity, right? Like, I mean, nowadays we see this every day with our tribalism and everything. It's like the group dynamic of, the left or the right. It's like it becomes its own animal, right? Like you put 3, 4, 5, 1,000 people together, they're like a mob then, right? That mob mentality takes over, and they operate as one almost. Or at least they operate, there is a precipitate that comes from that group dynamic that creates the way that entity operates. It's the same with a business team or a family. So with this business team or family, I want to run graphs on everybody. In fact, we have a graph that those of you in immersion training and assessment immersion training, you're going to have everybody in that family or everybody in that business on one wheel, and we'll plot these same things. These will get plotted into various parts. Let's see, this is here. Sorry. The various parts of the graph. And then people that are like Paco, they're going to be over here. And then the people that Paco needs to hire would be over here. And we can see where the team is. We can see where everybody on the team falls in terms of behavioral dynamics or values or whatever we're optimizing for. Same with like a family. Like you put the whole family on one graph. When I see this, rather than I don't get my team, or I'm out of touch, or I don't get my family, like I'm like a black sheep in the family. Maybe you're just at a different part of the graph. Maybe you're still a human too, or maybe they are. And we discover where everybody is, and we discover what are the issues around communicating. Like how hard is it for these guys to communicate with these guys, and vice versa? I mean, that's not easy. Well, I know why, because I understand these dynamics and I can see it on the graph. That takes me, again, that's very fast, but then I can go farther with my client. Now my client's life is being coached. Now their business is being coached, or different aspects of it at least. I'm not just pigeonholing my focus on that individual. I'm still, they're sponsoring everything, but I'm helping them with the rest of these areas that they're not in charge of this stuff. They can only influence at best. And now I'm impacting all these areas. I've gone, as we say, farther, right? So I'm on steroids with no side effects as a coach, because I can quickly make a difference in all these impact areas. Show me another coach that's going to do that without giving some kind of speech to the group, or doing like months and months of like group therapy or consulting individual. Like, I don't even need to meet these guys. Do you realize that the last individual is a solopreneur that I helped get an assistant, so his business is just growing like crazy? The last guy I did this with, the assistants that he hired, I never even met them. I just ran graphs on them. And he made the best possible selection out of that. No interview time, and that was fast, but I also went farther with that client. You could do this in a relationship or with a family. You can actually make a difference without even meeting these individuals. Now, it's great if you want to meet them and you could go deeper, and that's phenomenal, right? I know, Nasima, isn't that the truth, right? So, but the point of the matter is, this isn't just farther, although I hopefully I've demonstrated how this might take you farther as a coach, but think of it as like higher also. I can go to a higher level, not because, like, when we go deep, we have to go down. We have to dig, right? We're digging into the ground, so to speak. So, but when we're in the ground with somebody going very, very deep, we can kind of, this is probably an apropos metaphor, we can kind of get stuck in the ground, right? We're mired in the emotion. We're mired in the esoteric conversation. We're mired in, we can get lost. We can get stuck. I want to go high. I want to go high level. One of the ways I can go high level, and this is really key, this is exactly what we just mentioned, is by not getting mired in every little individual in this individual's life. If I actually, and I hate to say this, but it's like, if I actually don't talk to and connect with these individuals, I can go to a high level conceptually, and again, objectify the esoteric aspects in a graph, and actually make this much more actionable and fast and big picture. Because, like, if you have to analyze what is the way that these particular group of people in this particular demographic operate as a group, you don't want to talk to every individual. Like, you could go deep like that, but you really want to see the big picture of all of it. I can go higher. I can get to the 50,000 foot view, and I can see the whole landscape by putting everybody on the same graph. The group dynamics, the communication issues, the results, the strengths and the weaknesses of that family or that team, where it's going to go and where it's not going to go. There's a family that I know very well where there's a couple people in the very, very aggressive area, and then there's a couple in the very, very kind of introverted, shy area. And these two groups don't talk to each other. And they don't talk to each other not because they don't love each other, but they don't talk to each other because the shy and soft and kind of easygoing people are shocked by the aggressiveness of the more kind of dynamic part of that family. And so we have a rift in that family. It's like this. And they're not really, I mean, they're still a family, but they're not really together. They're like two factions, right? That's a wound in that family. That is it's a dysfunction, if you could call it that. It's a pathology almost. Now, what I can do with that family is I can mend that, not wound necessarily just from the graphs, but I can show them why this is happening and the dynamics for that. So, like, these guys that were taking it so personally because these people were so mean, realize these people are just 10 times as intense as I am on my most intense day. And these people are so upset that these guys don't seem to even respond. We'll realize these people are much more covert, and they're not very communicative in that way. They hold things inside. Speaking of digging. Can't even imagine what that would do to that communication and the way that these two parts of a family could connect. And now imagine that as a business. Imagine how much farther a business could go if I could graph these guys without even talking to them, and work with the leader or work with somebody on how those dynamics are playing out so they can shift and change the entire landscape. If this is invisible to me as a coach, I can't impact it. I fail. Like, it will limit my ability to go farther. It will put a ceiling on what I could do. If this is invisible, this stuff is invisible to your client or to the people on these teams in life and business, it will limit them. This rift in this family, as long as it's invisible to that family, they'll continue to be wounded about it. Once it's visible to them, it doesn't need to stop them. They might not choose to, they might still choose to be constrained by it, but now they have a choice. And that's what I'm there to give my client when I go farther with them through building a team and selecting people or dealing with the group dynamics on a team and helping to optimize that. So I'll give an example. There's an executive team that I work with that's actually similar to this, in that the CEO is really dynamic and very intense. and the rest of the people on the team, or the other half of the team, so to speak, are super introverts, and they're like, like more mechanics, if you will, kind of in the back office. And the first session I had with these guys as a team, I showed them what I'm showing you here. And I explained, look, your CEO, he's going to be the hatchet man. He's going to be the one that goes in and fights battles with you, against you, for you, with team members like that. They're the fighter. They're the warrior of this group. So you need to respect what they have to bring to the table, but it's not always going to be pretty. You're not always going to like them. In fact, you're going to hate their guts sometimes. And that's one of the reasons why this business will be successful and maintain its growth is because you've got that individual as a leader. So let's stop making Ben wrong. His name is Ben, and let's celebrate what he does and what he's able to do. And even to this day, when I have team meetings with that executive team, I always acknowledge Ben when he's like he gets on the warpath sometimes, right? Like, this person's not delivering, and this is the way that is. And like all of a sudden people are like, they're like little enemies for a while, right? This does happen. This is not pathological. This is totally normal for a team. And I talk to people every day. They get wounded about that, like it's some evil thing. It's not evil thing. It's just this is humanity that we're talking about here. We're not talking about like Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker. We're not talking about the heaven and hell. That's just a story in our head about that. We got to deal with the reality of the dynamic and not make it wrong. And so even to this day, I still acknowledge Ben. Just the other day, he like really took a lot of flack from a team member because he really got in their face. And this team member had some limitations. He was like really hardcore. Like, this is bullshit. That's not true. You're not limited in this way. I mean, he just really went after them. And I said to the individual at the time, I said, I really want to acknowledge you because you take a lot of guff from people, and people attack you a lot of times because you are, so intense. And you say the things that nobody else really wants to say because everybody else wants to be buddies, and you're willing to do that. And so like really, really kind of acknowledge you enough for taking that role, because it's a role that your company absolutely needs. And without that, your company fails. And you're the only one that on this team that can do that in their circle of possibilities consistently because of who you are, behaviorally speaking. And I took it right back to the graph. How's that for going farther? Whole different team dynamic there. So that same team, I actually helped them hire sales team members, and we have a member of that team currently who's not a good fit. And when she was hired for the team, I'd already told them, I looked at her graph and I said, look, this is not ideal for a salesperson. They're going to have trouble closing. They're going to be very intimidated by the process. They're going to get anxiety about it. And lo and behold, when they hired her against my better judgment, she immediately had challenges. The first, they put her into coaching with me instantly because they knew that she needed help. And so the first session I had with her, I looked at her graph, and I won't draw it or anything like that, but I saw she was, she was like this, except she had none of this. Her goals orientation, her speed, her intensity was way down here. So she was all fun and connecting. And I said to her, I'll just call her Sheila for lack of anonymity here. Sheila, look, the reason why you're feeling like a fraud, the real reason why you're so intimidated by this position is because when you get into a position or into a career or into a business, you will enjoy the growth for a while, the novelty of it, and you'll have a whole lot of fun. But as soon as it stops being fun, you stop growing, because you're all about fun and connecting, and you're not about anything else. And so you're feeling like a fraud in here because you are supposed to be representing something that you've never accomplished yet, not because it's a lack of accomplishment on your part, because it's a lack of persistence on your part, because it stopped being fun, and then you end up shortchanging your own success. And so for you, like, I get that you feel like a fraud because that's missing for you, but you could right that wrong immediately by buckling down and doing things that aren't fun, which is going to be the hardest thing for you. But if you were to do that, your whole life would change, because once you do that, you're not going to feel like a fraud. You're going to be so confident and you're going to sell like crazy. That was the first time I talked to her. That wasn't even a coaching session. She called me before our first session because she was so frazzled at the time. And it really wasn't a perfect fit for her to be in that position anyway. But I knew that from her graph, because I'd seen her graph when she had gotten into the business, because we'd run it for selection purposes, if nothing else. That was like a 40-minute conversation I had with her. And Sheila said, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is exactly what I needed to hear. You're right. If I just handle that one piece for myself, I am going to have a whole different life, and I could totally be confident about making the sales that I need to make. She had been barred from her presentations. This was front of the room sales. This is like doing Zoom meetings with like 10, 20 people at a time, giving presentations, running webinars. She was like, that was her responsibility. They wouldn't let her do it because she wasn't confident enough in those meetings. She went back to the sales manager, did her next presentation cold, and crushed it. He immediately got her into doing, actual group presentations, and she was off the charts because she was all about fun and connecting and inspiring people. And she had finally saw, wow, if I just buckled down and did the not fun things, I'll be even more confident. I'll be more inspiring. And people were just enthralled by her. And she started making, 20, 30% conversion rates instantly. Okay. The reason why I was able to reach her that quickly and that deeply is because I saw her graph and I knew what that meant, and I could translate that to her in a compelling way. And still to this day, she gets results based upon that fact. She has a whole different life as a result of it. Now, in the long term, what just happened with Sheila, I'll use for anonymity again, is that her results were not as good as they really wanted of their standards in that sales team. And so the CEO said, look, we really need to talk to her about maybe moving her to a coaching role in this coaching business. They have sales and they have coaching, right? Because she's so much more about connecting with people and not about urgency and goals and closing and all the kind of stuff salespeople need to do. That's just bottom line going to be more intimidating to her than is probably, as ecological, right? It's not going to be a good thing for her long term, even though she can do it, because I coached her through everything she needed to in order to do it, but it's not like her tendency. It's not home base for her. Does that make sense? There's things in your life that you could do if you have to, but you will avoid it like the plague if you don't. That was her with sales. And so the CEO had a come to Jesus conversation with her lightly about like, hey, is this really the best role for you? Maybe you should be coaching. And she's now in a coaching role. And she's still going to be doing some sales, but it's not going to be her main event. And the pressure is off of her now. And she gets to do what for her graph is perfect, frankly, after looking at it quite a bit. She's going to have a different life, not just because of how I coached her, which I did, and I made her into Superwoman at the time, or she made herself into Superwoman with that coaching, but how we actually worked on how she's a part of the team, and she was in the wrong place on the team, and she needed to move to a different place. And that's the CEO and the sales manager that I also coach that also could see this because I had her graph, and they could see how she's going to be better off here. Now, if we didn't have those graphs, you know what would happen to Sheila? Sheila would have had bad results. The CEO would have said, this is a bad seed. They're nuts. They can't do anything. Let's just get rid of her. But instead, they have these graphs, and so we've saved a career. We've saved a life, and we've saved a business simultaneously. Find the coach that's going to do that without these tools. I would challenge you to find. With that speed, with this being speedy enough to do it efficiently in a business context, like most coaches, like businesses look at you guys like you're on planet Pluto. Like you're out in the stars, just like trying to feel your way around, right? Digging and digging and digging, so to speak. I was able to show something empirical to a CEO in a way that the CEO understood it and use it to coach the client or the employee so that they could achieve something and then get a position for themselves is way better than the toxic atmosphere they came from, which they've now rid themselves of. So we've made a difference for several lives. We've coached a business to success, and we're making a difference for the bottom line all at the same time. Everybody wins, right? That's farther. That's what I mean by farther. The group dynamics, the building of the team, and the way that we can connect those dots within a business as well. Okay? Like, you can't imagine how not just proud I am, but how fulfilling it is to know the kind of difference and impact I was able to make, and I am consistently able to make with people in those types of situations where triangulating all of that would never have happened without me. And of course, then I make money doing that too, because the business values that perspective, going farther with them. So I'll give you one more example around going farther. There was a business partnership that I coached about 15 years ago, and this is a long time ago, and I was just starting to use these assessment tools again because of Robert's advice that he had given me, luckily. And so I sat down with these business partners. We ran graphs on both of them, and I explained to them, this is why you guys don't communicate the way you need to. And the one business partner who had brought me in, by the time we were done with about 30-minute conversation, she said, oh my gosh, this is going to completely transform how I work with my partner. And now that business partnership has gone on to, they were in restaurant business. They've gone on to get 10 more locations than what they had at the time. They only had like 2 at the time. And the primary reason I believe behind that, other than obviously their expertise and their ability to do what they did, which they already had without me, was their ability to work with each other in a way that was much more communicative, dynamic, and productive than what they ever would have had without that support. And I got both of them as clients for a number of months at that point, and so it made a difference for me and for them. So you can do this with intimate partners, with families, with business partners, with businesses, with teams that are not yet built, with solopreneurs that need an assistant, and all the employees as well, as I explained. This is the kind of dynamic that makes assessments, at least on a business coaching element, but also in life, the killer app for your clients. And frankly, for your coaching business, if you choose to use it for that. So that said, I'm going to give you a couple actions. But before I do, I want to also give you kind of a big picture invitation. Well, actually, I'm going to give you 2 invitations. And then I'm going to share with you a couple actions you can take immediately based upon what we talked about today, whether we're working together or not. First, a couple invitations. So the first invitation I have for you is that if you are not in assessment immersion training at this point, we're in orientation week right now. If you're watching this in the replay, if not, this is week 1 because I'm recording this a little late. I'm a little late to the game on this one, but this is officially the orientation week live stream. Okay, and so you still have time to get in. If you want to learn this stuff, you really want to, like, if you want to coach businesses, make 6 figures in a year, you can do that using these tools, because you could use this, it gets you in the door in a business, and instantly you're adding this kind of value. I mean, the confidence that gives us as coaches, and the confidence that our clients have in us is like, just, it's off the charts. It's insane what we can do as business coaches. If you want to work with individual clients, hopefully I've demonstrated to you how that makes a difference as well. So whether you're doing one or the other or both, you know, being inside of the assessment immersion training is where to be, I think, to learn and master this stuff so you can use these tools, and they become marketing tools for yourself, as you might imagine as well, because everybody likes to know this about them, about their teams. So it instantly kind of sucks them into working with you. It is not hard to get clients when you have this kind of ability and when you have these tools behind you. So that's the first invitation I would offer you. Second invitation is, regardless of whether you get our training on this stuff, you can learn this stuff pretty quickly and use it. It's not rocket science, as you might see here, especially as a coach where you have this intuition about people already. This just validates your intuition or corrects it if you're off base, or gives something to resolve, because then you got to talk to your client about these things. They open doors for conversations you might never have had you not actually worked with your client in this respect with these kind of steroids, so to speak. I'll give you an example as I'm talking about this invitation. I worked with a client who is, he's a multimillionaire. He's worth like $9-10 million. He's an investor and business owner, but real estate is a huge area of profitability for him. And I, after looking at his graphs, said, look, you are not going to go out there and start all these startup businesses. You're a strategist, and real estate is your strength. So you need to use your strategist profile the best way you know how, which is to do it in real estate. Because what he had told me just a second before that was, I could have made $500,000 more last year if I had just played full out in real estate. So I connected the dots of what he explained to me with his graph to bring it together into advice. But I'll tell you, we spent like 13 sessions going over all his different assessment results. I mean, that was like months and months of coaching that we worked together on for him to understand himself, to get to the point where I could give him that advice, where I could give him that coaching, as you might call it. He is on track to create more value and more profitability for himself and his family and his investments and his businesses this year than he ever would have had I not worked with him. Now, do you think that we're not going to work together anymore after that kind of value? Like, we're probably going to be working together for life at this point because of the impact that I'm able to make with him. And the reason why I'm explaining that is that these things that I've just shared with him didn't take a lot of time for me to understand, and they didn't take a lot of explanation. There were things that for his insights into himself that were not very deep, he was able to see a graph and understand it very, very quickly. Anybody can understand this stuff. So whether or not you want to learn and master this ability with us, I invite you to get a license with us for these tools. We have licenses that are available, and I can give you a license for this. And here's what I do for any licensee that's working with us using these tools. Any graph you run on a client, if you send it to me, I will give you my analysis. Okay. I'll take, it's not like 2 hours, but for no additional charge, it's the cost of the license and the cost of the assessments. I will give you a quick video. I'll email it to you where I explain what I see on a cold read for their graphs, for your client's graphs. I'm not sending it to your client, I'm sending it to you. So what you get to do then is take all those insights, whether or not you had those insights, and you could be me, so to speak. You can take everything I've shared with you, pick the cherries out of that, and then give that, and you deliver it to your client. So then you're the guru for your client. They're going to follow you anywhere as a result of that. Now, eventually, chances are you're not going to need as much analysis from me, because as I analyze different graphs, you're going to start seeing typical patterns, and you won't even need me to tell you, because you're like, I know what Jeff would say about that because I've seen him say it 3 or 4 times. That's included in your license. Okay. So the bottom line is, that's another invitation I would offer you, whether or not you work with us in the Assessment Immersion Training, you really become a master of this stuff, get certified in it, get a license for this stuff. It's not expensive. It's like $10 a month, and you can get access to these tools. And then I'm your team member. I'm on your team. I'm working for you. Speaking of a team as well. And you could just go blow out whatever kind of impact you want to create, blow the lid off of what's possible in your coaching business, and really make a difference for the world as well in the ways that I've described, and probably some ways that I can't imagine, because you're going to do things that I'll never do, I'm sure. Or at least work with clients that I'll never touch, because you're going to be out there in your own world. And I'm stuck in mine, right? Speaking of being stuck. So those are the 2 invitations. Get trained on this stuff. Somehow you can work with us on that starting today if you choose to. Talk to me immediately about that. And then second, get a license and get these tools working for you. And you're going to learn by doing. Now, that said, set those invitations aside. I'm going to give you 3 little assignments, 3 little actions. First of all, use these tools with every client. Okay? Like, get them somehow and use them, because if you don't use them, you use it or lose it, so to speak. Not to mention, you learn these tools better by seeing a client that you're working with and experiencing them very deeply, and then also seeing the graph and seeing the comparison between the two. When you can match a human up with a graph, you can see what the MRI or what the X-ray says about that individual, and then what you know in your own intuition and your own insights. Your intuition starts to come from these graphs just as much as they come from that individual, because you can match these up. next time you see that same graph, your intuition will bring back memories of that client. And it instantly imprints upon you how to coach that individual. So use this with every single client as much as you possibly can. Second action, find ways to offer faster results, higher results, deeper results with these tools. Okay. Figure out how you can integrate this technology into your programs so that it does speed up the results. So it does take those into higher level results. So you can go deeper. So you can make that kind of impact that we're talking about here. So figure it out. Figure out how to integrate this stuff, because you do need to integrate it. And then third, you really want to go farther in terms of how far you can go with a client. Consider working with their life, working with their teams, working with their family, working with the people around them to make an impact that's broader and farther and higher level than what you would just do when you go deep with one client in one conversation. That might be a group, that might be just running graphs and looking at it from afar and advising that leader or that individual. But usually the people that sign up for coaching, I mean, some people sign up for coaching because they're depressed and they're struggling and they just need somebody to kind of get them out of the hole. And that's fine if that's the case. But most clients that you'll find are high performers. They're the leaders of life. They're the business owners. They're the ones that are the top producers. They're the ones that are on the edge of what's possible and that people follow. They're already the influencers. They're already the at the tip of the spear, so to speak. They're the crusaders that are out there making things happen. So those leaders, you can coach them, and you will. I mean, those are the people that sign up for coaching a lot of times. But in order to really help them go farther, they're always, to some extent, going to be struggling with and wrestling with all the people that follow them, the people they lead, the impact that they have on the rest of the world, because they're already leaders. They're already out in front. So consider really working with the people that they lead to make an impact, to help them deepen the difference that they make for their teams or their businesses or their clients or their families or their communities, for that matter. It's not you directly necessarily impacting those people, although that could be part of it. Using these graphs, you can impact those individuals and those lives and those teams through the leader. Give the leader the insight that these tools can provide, and then the leader goes faster, the leader goes higher, the leader goes farther with the people in their life. And that helps you go faster, higher, farther with that leader, and ultimately be more valuable to them and extend the life of that coaching relationship, of course. If you do this, you make this kind of impact, the money's going to be there for you. I mean, when we were working at Tony Robbins, we were like, wow, look at the lives we're changing. Everybody was saying the same thing. We said, you know what? If we walked away from this and we just find clients for ourselves, like we're going to be able to write our own ticket. Like, we're going to make plenty of money, because people pay for real results in life. Not everybody will, but the leaders will, because they demand those results from you as their coach, and they demand them from their own life, and they're willing to pay the price. That's what makes a leader a leader. They're willing to pay the price, right? So you find those leaders around you, and they'll pay you to deliver these kind of results for them. Now, finally, regardless of you taking action on any of the invitations or the actions I just offered you, I also want to invite you to make a difference for other coaches and other leaders who haven't yet seen this. So wherever you are, whether it's the Facebook live stream or the YouTube live stream, if you can hit the like button or do the sharing and whatever it is that is available to you there, at least hit a like, because what that does for the algorithm, for the AI out there in Facebook and YouTube land, is it tells them that it made a difference for you and that this made an impact. And it's something that others might actually be able to take advantage of as well. And I'd be so grateful if you could be my partner in making a difference for the teams and the lives of people around us that we maybe aren't thinking of today. But, luckily there's this technology that allows us to reach people that even without us thinking about it, it just reaches them. And I know it'll make a difference if you do that as well. So I really appreciate it if you do that. Make a comment and ask me any questions that you have about this. I'm happy to answer them after the live stream is completed. And I look forward to seeing what kind of impact you make using assessment tools, regardless of what tools you use and what training you get. And let me know how this makes an impact in the lives of your clients and the businesses of your clients as well. And I look forward to seeing you in a live stream very soon to come, because in the next couple days, I'm going to see if I can get caught up and get to the week 1 live stream as well. So I'll see you in training. I'll see you with the assessment that you're working on and the clients that you're making an impact for. Take care until then.